I did not receive a fake news award yesterday. I have to wonder, though, is it an honor just to be nominated, or would it be an honor not to be nominated? I don't know. I can't tell you. But one thing I can tell you for sure is the Daily Dope is in the air. Howdy, 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 gang. Jeff McAleer once again, and I am your host for the Daily Dope, as well as the Grand Poobah of the GamingGang.com. Welcome aboard. Today is Thursday, January 18th, and I've got quite a bit cooking today. I just was opening with a fake news crack. I don't know. I thought it was kind of funny, the fake news awards, and then they came out and they were sort of fake. So did that make it the fake news awards? Don't know. Anywho, welcome aboard. Thanks for joining me. I've got some news items, still a little quiet on the news front, but there are some cool things I'm going to talk about in the news. Today, I'm also going to be reviewing the expansion for Folklore, the Affliction from Greenbrier Games, and it is Folklore, the Affliction Dark Tales. And this is actually not going to be the edition that's going to be in stores later this year. I'll talk about that a little bit in depth when I do my review, but I am going to be taking a look at this. If you're someone who follows on the Gaming Gang, you'll know that I really dug Folklore, the Affliction. On a scale of 1 to 10, I gave it a 9.5. It was that good. So I have had the expansion for a while, and I know I think the expansion sold out, because I know Folklore, the Affliction sold out. And then there was a new Kickstarter that came out to fund reprints with some changes, which I'll talk about a little bit. And those are going to be coming not too far off in the future. So I thought, hey, this would be a really good time to bust out the review for Dark Tales. Plus, it's Thursday. I like to cover RPGs on Thursday. And I have to be completely upfront. I have not finished reading Rise of the Drow from Adventure Week Games to be able to do a review. I reviewed their Snow White supplement, which I thought was awesome last week. And Rise of the Drow is really good too. But like I said, I haven't finished it yet, so I can't do a review. Anyway, if you're curious, tomorrow is going to be Family Fun Friday. I will be reviewing Ancestry from Calliope Games, designed by Eric, I believe it's M. Lang. I know it's Eric Lang. I believe the middle initial is M. Let's look. Yes, it is. I'm right. I had to look at the box. So if you were watching yesterday, and thank you if you were, you know that right before I went live, I had a package arrive, and I thought it was from GMT, and it turned out it was from Ninja Division, and it had 4 brand spanking new games. I thought, wow, hey, this is really cool. And then later on, after the show, I get another package, and it's a big box, really wide box. And I thought, my goodness, what in the world could this be? Well, it turns out my good pal, Mark H. Walker from Flying Pig Games and the Flying Pig Games team, I should say, I was going to say gang, sent me Old School Tactical Volume 2. And I'm going to have to actually kind of settle back a little bit. And as you can see, this is a big box. This is old school. Sure, thanks, Mark. Where am I going to put this on my gaming shelves? Huh? I'm kidding. I'm going to have to lay it down up on top. So, very nice. This is Eastern Front action. No, maybe it's Western. No, it's Western Front. I'm sorry. It's Western Front 1944 through 45. So we will be taking a peek at this very soon. Yeah, you know what? Let's do War Game Wednesday next week. We'll take a look at this. I'm sure I won't be able to get a review in, get to play it enough times to do a review before then, but we will unbox it. We'll do that. We'll unbox this next Wednesday for War Game Wednesday. Other things that are kicking, I'm going to have a review of This War of Mine from Ares Games, and that will be, I think I'm going to do that on Tuesday. Still a little up in the air what Monday's show shall bring. Anyway, before I move into the news, did want to mention, I got a couple of emails from people who were saying, wow, you sure whined about that YouTube thing enough yesterday. I thought, okay, well, first of all, I don't really think I was whining. Complaining, maybe. Yeah, complaining, being disappointed, being a little ticked off. Yeah, I would say that. Whining, I don't know. It was an hour-and-a-half show, hour-and-a-half-ish. I spent, what, 5 minutes talking about the YouTube debacle? And then floated out a couple of quick cracks about YouTube throughout the show, just like 2 throwaway jokes, or not even jokes, but I was like, I don't think that was really whining. I think the whole thing that kind of irritates me the most about the YouTube thing isn't necessarily for me or the gaming gang or anything like that, because without being able to monetize, if I don't hit 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 watch hours over the past 12 months, it's not like they're taking a ton of money out of my pocket. But there are a lot of creators out there who, you know, they rely on just, you know, if they have little websites, you know, those few dollars that come in a month are paying for those websites. So I wasn't whining. Sorry if, you know, if it bothered people that I was talking about that, but this is kind of an opinion show. It's just me chewing the fat with you every day. It's a little bit different because it's a live stream as opposed to someone just sitting in front of a camera, shooting, and then doing a bunch of editing and stuff like that. It's just all off the cuff. So anyway, so that was that. Few other items. Well, now I'll wait till I get to the mailbag for that. Oh, I did want to answer. There was a question. Now I can't think of the person's name offhand. I'm wearing a Cubs jersey, and I wear jerseys and stuff quite a bit. And this is the Cubs jersey that I tend to wear the most out of my Cubs jerseys. And they were kind of curious what player is my jersey, and it is Ron Santo. So I always talk about being old school, man. I am old school with my sports heroes as well. And gotta be honest, I don't think I can ever forgive the Hall of Fame Veterans Committee for waiting until Ron passed away to actually put him in the Hall of Fame. I mean, they had years and years to do it, and then they waited till he passed away. So that stinks, and I will never forget that. So to me, it's a black mark on the Veterans Committee for the voting for the Hall of Fame. Anyway, so got a few news pieces, and starting off, the first one is pretty big. It is doing extremely well. I mean, I got to be honest, it's devouring its Kickstarter goal, and it is from Gamelyn Games, and it is the latest in the Scott Alms, I believe I'm pronouncing that correctly, designed tiny epic game lineup. And it is on Kickstarter right now, looking for crowdfunding, and it has gotten a whole lot of crowdfunding. I will admit, while you can't swing a severed, decomposing arm without hitting some sort of a zombie game these days, this is really one you should take a peek at. And here's the dope about Tiny Epic Zombies from Gamelyn Games. Tiny Epic Zombies, a game of brutal survival play as hopeful survivors, or the zombies, in this 1-to-5 player game featuring competitive and cooperative modes and more item meeples. An unthinkable crisis has struck the Echo Ridge Mall. What, was there a price increase at the food court? Is Hot Tropic, or I should say Hot Topic, closing one of their stores? No. A mysterious outbreak has claimed the lives of nearly everyone there. What's worse is they're crawling the stores and commons as zombies hungry for flesh. Only a few survivors remain. Are you among the survivors, or are you one of the ravenous zombies? The choice is yours in the Tiny Epic Zombies. Tiny Epic Zombies is a 30-minute 1 to 5 player game of survival that features 5 distinct play modes. There's cooperative team play with game-controlled zombies. There's cooperative team play with zombies controlled by a non-team player. There's a competitive free-for-all with the game controlling the zombies. And there's the competitive free-for-all with a zombie player. And there's also, wait for it, solo play. In Tiny Epic Zombies, survivors are always on the run, collecting weapons, killing zombies, and working toward completing objectives. Completing 3 objectives can win you the game, but if you're too focused on the objectives, the zombies will overrun them all, and that will be the end of you. I do have the Kickstarter video. It's not real long. And it will show off some of the components and everything, and it will probably show you why people are super pumped about Tiny Epic Zombies.
Tiny Epic Zombies is a 1 to 5 player game of brutal survival set in the zombie-infested Echo Ridge Mall. It's the 3rd Tiny Epic game to feature one of the greatest board game components ever, item meeples. In Tiny Epic Zombies, players choose their style of game from 5 different play modes. They can all work together to survive in a truly cooperative mode. They can choose one player to control the zombies while the rest work together to survive. Or they can throw cooperation out the window and play a free-for-all competitive mode. In competitive play, players can try to survive on their own merits or choose one player to control the zombies while the rest fend for themselves. Lastly, Tiny Epic Zombies offers a challenging solo mode where the fate of Echo Ridge Mall is entirely on you and you alone. No matter what mode you play, Tiny Epic Zombies offers exciting, fast-paced gameplay with endless replayability. In Tiny Epic Zombies, if you're not playing as the zombies, then you're playing as one of the numerous characters, each with their own special ability stuck in the center of the zombie outbreak. To survive, you'll need to accomplish multiple key objectives, like contacting the CDC, repairing the helicopter on the mall's roof, or discovering a cure for the outbreak. To do this, players will need to stay on the move and search all corners of the mall for clues and parts. They'll need to assemble an arsenal, and of course, kill zombies. There's no better time than now to pledge your support and get a copy of Tiny Epic Zombies, where every dollar pledged makes the game better for everyone. Don't wait. Join us and become a backer today.
As I mentioned, Tiny Epic Zombies has devoured its Kickstarter goal by, I don't know, 1,300%. Yes, about 1,300%. In fact, now I'm not sure if this launched today or yesterday. I had it kind of floating through the grapevine. In fact, hey, Michael Coe, you goofball. I touched base with you, made sure you had my email address so you could send me news items when you had Gamelyn Games stuff coming out. And I had to find this info secondhand. Boy, I tell you. No, I'm just kidding. Anyway, it was at about $150,000 off of, I believe it was a $15,000 goal. And that was earlier today. And then I took a peek just to try to pull another image from the Kickstarter project. And it had already, just within maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours, cranked up another $50,000 in funding. Oh, yeah. And I have to say, from what I've seen of this game, the price that you're looking at, the pledge levels, it is going to be a steal. I can see why so many people are jumping on board. And I have to admit, those item meeples are pretty interesting with the little holes. You can put guns in their hands, and crowbars and stuff like that, axes. Anyway, you can secure a copy of Tiny Epic Zombies for a $20 pledge. That's right, $20. There's also a deluxe Kickstarter edition that is $25. So for just $5 more, you can get kind of the deluxe treatment. And the project is going to run through February 9th. So I can only imagine, well, maybe I can't even imagine just how big this project is going to become on Kickstarter. And I've got to say, I was not overly familiar with the Tiny Epic line of games. And Elliot Miller, my best friend, everybody knows, I always mention Elliot quite a bit, from voiceofe.com, who used to be part of the gaming gang. He and I will be at the conventions together, and we usually give each other a hand when we're flying solo, doing cameraman duties for each other's videos and stuff like that. And of course, then we hang out because we're best friends. So we had picked up Tiny Epic Western at Gen Con. And Michael Coe's a really nice guy. I had actually interviewed him back in Arizona when I lived out there and the gaming gang launched. And he was part of Crash Games, but had left Crash Games long before they crashed and burned. But he remembered me from the interview, and he was really nice and gave both Elliot and I review copies of Tiny Epic Western, because I want to say it was the Saturday night of Gen Con. They were sold out of everything. Gamelyn Games was sold out of everything. They only had a few copies of Tiny Epic Western left in their booth area, and they had a pretty good sized area. We love this game. This game is excellent. This little box is jam-packed with like tons of gaming goodness. Elliot and I both really enjoyed it. My nephew and his friends, they all thought it was really cool, a little bit different than what they were used to playing. It is a super game. And the thing is, I've been told by people that it's not even the best of the Tiny Epic game lineup, which I'm like, holy cow, how good are the other games? So, I usually don't jump in and back Kickstarters. Yeah, I know. What can I tell you? It's, you know, it's shoestring budget. In fact, my budget makes a shoestring look like a cable holding up the Brooklyn Bridge. But I think I'm going to jump on board this one. I really do. Because I honestly, like I said, $25? That's a steal. That is a steal, because if that game is packed with as much goodness, gaming goodness as Tiny Epic Western, it's worth twice the price. Anywho, I don't want to just spend the whole news portion talking about Tiny Epic Zombies, because my friends over at Warlord Games have a new Doctor Who release. In fact, it's the first one for 2018, and it will feature the Doctor's greatest adversaries, the Daleks. Yes, that's right. The Daleks. There are 2 new Daleks and the Genesis Arc that are being released from Warlord Games for the Doctor Who miniatures game, which I have to say, those minis look pretty sweet. And I do have the dope from Warlord Games. Following on our Dalek plastic sets, we're proud to announce an all-new box set, Maximum Extermination. Not a great Dalek impersonation. Anyway, Maximum Extermination features 2 unique Dalek metal figures, the fearsome Special Weapons Dalek and the Red Supreme Dalek. The set is finished off with a beautifully crafted resin Genesis Arc. The Special Weapons Dalek, first seen in the 1988 story Remembrance of the Daleks, is a heavily armed Dalek featuring greater offensive capabilities than a regular Dalek, and was built to withstand even the strongest enemy fire. This unique design featured an enormous energy cannon mounted on the upper half of its body, replacing the usual eye stalk. Manipulator arm and gun stick are also found on standard Dalek casings. After the return of Davros, the resultant reestablishment of the Dalek race, I'm still under the weather a little bit, guys. Sorry. The red-colored Supreme Dalek commanded this new Dalek empire. His design was more similar to a regular Dalek, however, he sported gold-colored ridges around his casing and gold spheres on his skirt section. The Genesis Ark was a prison ship constructed using stolen Time Lord technology. Although only slightly larger in size to a normal Dalek casing, it was dimensionally transcendental, like the TARDIS. Like the TARDIS. Ugh, I need a sip here. Ugh. And I actually read this news piece before I'm reading it now. Transcendental must have thrown me off. Anyway, it's bigger on the inside than the outside, just like the TARDIS. And it transported millions of Daleks from the last great Time War to the present day, where the Ark was opened and the Daleks inside were released into the sky above Torchwood Tower to wreak havoc upon humanity. You can score the Maximum Exterminate box set for $22. And they do look pretty sweet. Warlord Games does some really nice sculpts, and their pricing is pretty fair. I like the pricing, especially on their plastic miniatures too. They offer really good value, and they're always doing specials too. That's one of the reasons why I include Warlord Games news pieces. Plus, Mike from Warlord has been cool over the years. I got to reach out to him, touch base. I haven't talked to him in quite a while. Maybe we could get a look at some of the miniatures games that they've got, or some of the core books. We'll find out. Anyway, there is a highly anticipated RPG on the horizon, and I am talking about it is highly anticipated. And I am talking about the Expanse RPG from Ronin Publishing. And it will be releasing this August at Gen Con. I do have some info about it. I don't have really any images. They have not released any kind of previews or anything like that. So at the moment, all I've really got is, and it may even be a working image for the cover of the core book. Now, I will point out the game is going to hit Kickstarter this spring. And from my understanding, the game is going to be complete before it actually hits Kickstarter. So Green Ronin's actually kind of going to be using Kickstarter, I would take a guess, to probably use it as order fulfillment and maybe to finance some additional artwork. That is my guess. But I do have some info about what you can expect, and here's the dope from Green Ronin. First and foremost, The Expanse is a standalone game. It will share a common system with other games, making it easy for age system veterans to pick it up. The core book will be self-contained and all that you need to start playing. Much the same way as Blue Rose is a standalone game, even while it shares systems in common with Fantasy Age. Second, while The Expanse uses most of the common elements of the Age system, our design philosophy has always been to tailor the system to suit the setting and story rather than the other way around. So the game will feature elements particular to the Expanse novels, setting, and style, such as replacing the health score with a fortune score, measuring more of a character's luck in terms of staying alive in a fight or other dangerous situations. A twist on fortune is that you can spend it on things other than damage, but you run the risk of not having as much of it when you're attacked or encounter other hazards. Likewise, the spending of fortune affects the churn, an in-game measure of how perilous and complicated things are. Eventually, the churn can boil over, and as fans of the Expanse novels know, things can get really complicated really fast. The Expanse core book starts out with a setting in the nearly year and a half between the events of the first novel, Leviathan Wakes, and the second, Caliban's War. It's after a significant shake-up in the solar system when major events are beginning to portend even larger changes in the future. It provides us, and your Expanse game, with a convenient starting point without the need to detail every event in the entire series. Plus, it allows you, and us, to follow along with the series as major events continue to unfold. You can play in parallel to the events of the novels. It's a big universe after all, with a lot going on. or put your own characters into the roles of the crew of the Rocinante in some of the later stories of the series. I do not have any pricing information. I do not know when the Kickstarter is going to hit. I'm guessing probably within the next couple of months. But I can tell you right now, this is one that is going to be on every Expanse, or I should say the Expanse fans' minds. And I believe it's probably going to pull in some new role players too. Because, I mean, personally, I love the show. I have not started reading the latest book that came out in December, but I am up to date with the James A. Corey. It's actually two authors, but it's, the pen name with the series. Really, really dig it. And I think Sci-Fi has done a phenomenal job with the TV show. And I've introduced it to a bunch of people. Elliot Miller, for one, who was like, for months, I kept saying, oh, you got to check out The Expanse. It's so good. It's really, really good. And it's not Sci-Fi, because Sci-Fi got the reputation of, you didn't watch too many shows on Sci-Fi because they were all fluff and nope, not The Expanse. So, and then he was like, oh, I started watching it. It's awesome. I binge watched both seasons. So I'm like, all righty. Anyway, I have a little bit more RPG news. Hey, it's Thursday. I was trying to focus a little more on RPGs. And Burning Games has their award-nominated and winning lineup of the science fiction Faith system on sale right now at Drive-Thru RPG. Here's the dope. Faith, the core book, is the cornerstone of the Faith experience, a 440-page long tome that includes 300 pages of setting filled with adventure seeds, full 2.0 rules of the revolutionary RPG engine, character creation for 4 different species, rules to customize and play your own spacecraft, an introductory adventure to get you started, and over 120 NPCs and pieces of gear. Right now, the core book is on sale for $22.99. Faith Tiantang, that's a guess, Tiantang, is the first official campaign sourcebook for Faith, focused on what is arguably the setting's most important location, the Tiantang Dyson Ring, capital of the Corvosphere, home of the greatest starfaring species in the universe, the Corvo, and headquarters of its rulers, the almighty Megacorps. It features 100 pages of Tiantang-specific setting info, over 20 new NPCs, dozens of story seeds, and a play-ready adventure that takes place in the crowded Zero-G streets of the megacity. Zero-G was written kind of odd. It was a 0 and a G, and it took me a second going, huh? Rather than writing out Zero-G. Anyway, that is on sale for $13.11. The Faith A Garden in Hell starter set features a complete campaign for at least 7 to 12 gaming sessions that will take you to Uhara, an alien planet infested by Ravengers. As a brave member of the Coalition, your task is to not only defeat them, but to extract enough information to turn the tides of the battle for the universe. Do you have what it takes? That is on sale for $11.24. Then there's the Faith Deluxe Art Book, and it's a complete art book that showcases more than 3 years of hard work well spent to create the universe of Faith by a team of more than 35 illustrators. It includes commentary by the art director and the illustrators behind some of the most memorable scenes, as well as many sketches and work-in-progress pieces to showcase the creation process of the art. I do want to point out that the art book is not on sale, but you can pick that up at Drive-Thru RPG for $22.49. Before I wrap up this item, I do want to mention that the New Year New Game sale is still going on at Drive-Thru RPG. And I believe you only have about 3 days left. And this is one of those periodic sales that Drive-Thru RPG will do on thousands of products. So there's like over 5,000 RPG core rules, bundles, supplements, you name it, all on sale. And for the most part, they're 20, 30, 40. I saw a couple bundles that were over 60% off. So, of course, if you're in the market to check out some new RPGs, by all means, take advantage of the sale because they don't come around. There'll be sales where you'll get 20% off books from time to time throughout the year from Drive-Thru RPG, but this is one of the big sales that they do. And of course, if you do swing over to Drive-Thru RPG, before you do so, do me a favor and pop over to thegaminggang.com, click on one of our banners, and if you do make a purchase, then we get, a little piece of that, which goes a long way. You would be amazed. Now, the final item that I wanted to talk about is, got something in my eye. There's a little cat here floating around right over here. Kind of popped me. Ooh. Let me grab a sip here. So the final item I wanted to include in the news was yesterday for War Game Wednesday. I was talking about Normandy, the beginning of the end, from Draco Ideas, which is a Spanish war game company, and it looks really neat. It's on Kickstarter right now, and it's priced pretty friendly. I think the early bird ended. Almost positive the early bird's over. But you can get like the core game, and I want to say it's $45, $46, memory serves me correctly. So anyway, I had the Kickstarter video for it yesterday, and it wasn't loading up properly. And then I threw out something along the lines of, well, you're really not missing anything because it's not a real long video. And I didn't want people to think that I was trying to say, well, you're not missing anything because it's not impressive, because that's not what I was trying to say. So to make it up to Draco Ideas, I want to share the Kickstarter video, and I know it'll work this time. It's not real long, a couple minutes, I think. So let's take a peek at that. And once again, it is fully funded over on Kickstarter. So by all means, if you're a war gamer, check it out. I had to chuckle a little bit because it's traveling vehicles. Oh, okay. But it does look like a pretty interesting platoon level war game. So I wanted to share that video because, like I said, yesterday, through a little technical glitch, video didn't load. I started loading up the Mansky Caper video from Calliope Games, which is also currently up on Kickstarter. I think they hit their funding today. Way to go, Calliope. Or they were just a few dollars shy earlier today. But I kind of felt bad because I was like, well, that just everything's off the cuff. Nothing's scripted except when I'm obviously reading stuff off a teleprompter for the press releases. But I was like, well, I didn't want people to think I was like, you're not missing anything. No, I mean, it wasn't a very long video. So there you have it. Anyway, so I am going to review the Folklore, the Affliction, Dark Tales in just a moment. Just wanted to reach in the mailbag real quick. By the way, if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, you can email me at mailbag@thegaminggang.com. I did forget to mention as the show began, there is chat. It's just not on screen. I should put like a little sticky note like right in front of me where folks can't see it, but I see it. Or it's like, okay, say this in the beginning, say this in the beginning, say this in the beginning. Anyway, there is chat through Twitch and YouTube. And it's not on the screen in front of you. It is on the screen in front of me, though. So if anybody wants to chime in, say hello, question, comment, anything like that, by all means. If you don't want to chat, that's okay, too. But anyway, so I get this, I got an email from Edward, I shouldn't say Ed, Edward in Portland, Oregon. And they were asking if I am going to, because for an example, my Folklore, the Affliction review was a standard video. It pretty much set up just like most video reviews you would see, where it's not live, it's all shot, it's all edited, different overlays and lower thirds and things like that go flashing past. So the question was, am I going to do those, or am I going to stick to the format where I'm reviewing stuff on the show or anything in between? And to be really bluntly honest, how much time do people think I want to invest? Come on. To review something and then, on the show and then shoot another video that's only the review? Come on. But I understand where they're coming from. And I have been going and making sure that I do timestamp the videos, especially if somebody's watching on YouTube afterwards, after the stream is processed and everything. I go in and I do the timestamp so you can actually click on the little link and it'll jump to what you want to see. So you don't necessarily have to sit there and be subjected to my, ramblings throughout the show if you don't want. But I got to be honest, I doubt it. If I'm doing the weekday show, no, I highly doubt that I'm going to sit there and shoot a completely new video reviewing the same game that I reviewed on the show. Just can't see it. It's just too much of an investment of time doubling stuff up. Now, that doesn't mean that at some point I wouldn't actually go in and separate, because on YouTube you can do this, where I would separate, say, the review portion and create a new video with that. But to me, that's a little bit of a cheat, because it's sort of doubling up on the videos and views and things like that. I don't know. I don't think I'm going to do that either. So anyway, other item that I was going to mention, and I don't have a person's name attached to this because it came from like a small gaming company, or they might be game reviewers. And when I was talking about the YouTube thing yesterday, and I said, I don't know what, 115. It fluctuates all the time. As far as subscribers, I'll gain some subscribers and I lose some subscribers. And it's like, okay, well, I get it. I'm not everybody's cup of tea. And they said, oh, hey, XYZ gaming channel or whatever did a giveaways so they could get to that 1,000 subscriber cutoff, right? So they're doing a giveaway first, like, if we get to 1,000 subscribers, we'll give this game out. I said, hey, you should do that. And in my opinion, now I'm all for doing giveaways. So I was going to do the giveaway for 1960, The Making of the President, Z-Man Games Edition that I've got back there. And then I took a peek and yeah, it's all punched. So I feel kind of weird doing that as a giveaway. I might do some review copy stuff giveaways once I finish. But anyway, to me, that's a little cheaty. Okay, well, we're gonna do a giveaway if we get to 1,000 subscribers, and I'm not knocking the people who did this. I'm just saying, if this is my opinion, it feels a little cheaty because a lot of those subscribers who are joining after that point, they're just joining it to get something or have an opportunity to win something. They're probably not going to be watching your channel. And if somebody's a subscriber to the Gaming Gang or watching the Daily Dope on YouTube, I would prefer that, you know, they're a subscriber because they want to be a subscriber and maybe they're going to watch a video from time to time. So I don't know. It's just not something I want to do. I don't want to tie giveaways to subscribing. Now, that isn't to say that I'm not going to say, oh, well, I'm going to do a giveaway for patrons. You know, I have the little link down there for Patreon, which that's another story I could get into, but I won't. Another disaster, which is Patreon's fault. And anybody who's on Patreon knows what I'm talking about. But I'm not saying that I won't do something like that for some like really impressive games or some, you know, $90 MSRP games or something. I might do that. Done it a little bit in the past. I don't know. I honestly don't know. So all that really boils down to is if I get to 1,000 subscribers and hit the, you know, I think I'm a couple hundred hours watch time away from this cutoff that YouTube's got, then that's cool. If I don't, that's cool too. I'm not gonna cry over it. That could be, my life is over. That's it. You know what? I'm shutting down the Gaming Gang. That's it. No more Gaming Gang. Just kidding. All right, so as I mentioned before, I am taking a peek at Folklore, the Affliction, Dark Tales, and why not have us move over to the other camera here. And I've got some of the stuff set up. Now, it's important for me to point out that this is an expansion to the core game, Folklore, the Affliction. So you do need Folklore, the Affliction to play the expansion. Now, I said play it. Now, I didn't necessarily say you have to have Folklore, the Affliction if you want to score some of the miniatures I'm going to show you. But I also have to mention that this is not going to be the edition that you will receive when this expansion returns for sale from Greenbrier Games. And I will mention why. And it's because of, mainly, because of the miniatures. So I've got all the miniatures, and it's funny because, I mean, this is a really nice little storage tray. Pretty nice. It's a nice little storage tray for all the minis and that. But never fails when I have something up on the shelf, all the miniatures get mixed all up. So I had to sort through these and put them in the right ones. But the big thing that's going to be different about Folklore Dark Tales is that you will not have miniatures come with this. The Kickstarter that Greenbrier just had, really successful Kickstarter. They pulled in, I want to say $553,000 for the Kickstarter. And this was for a new print run. This wasn't even for a first game. It's for a new print run. And there was the option to be able to purchase the miniatures separately. So there is that. They should still, even though the Kickstarter is long over, I believe you should still have an opportunity where you'll be able to purchase the minis but they will be separate, and that goes for both Dark Tales as well as the core game. But I want to show you some of these miniatures, and as I mentioned earlier, kind of near the open of the show, I really, really like Folklore the Affliction. And yes, I guess we could say dungeon crawlers are kind of a dime a dozen right now, although it would cost you way more than a dime to buy a dozen of them. But there are a lot of things that I thought stood out for Folklore the Affliction, and much of that will carry over to my thoughts on Dark Tales. And the one little ding, because remember, I gave it a 9.5 out of 10 for the core game, and the one little ding was because the miniatures are of a plastic that's kind of soft. Now, if you saw my review, let's see if you can, let's move this over a little bit. Try to see if we can get it where it's not kind of lost in there. Okay, there we go. That's better. A little against the blue background. So it's a softer plastic. So for those who like to paint their miniatures, and I'm the first one, I am kind of a snob, especially miniature games that are miniatures games. I don't, and I've had people rip on me for saying this, and I did an interview with Paulo Parente, who does Dust, when he was in Arizona one time, over here from China, where he lives. And we were both kind of talking about how, you know, it doesn't, you lose a lot from the hobby of miniature gaming. Now, I'm not talking about for this game. This is, the miniatures are a bonus. But with miniatures games, we both couldn't understand, why would you play miniatures games and not at least try to paint the miniatures? And I know, time constraints, things like that. Hey, I'd love to be able to sit and paint miniatures too. I don't have time. But for those who would be painting the minis, this plastic is kind of soft. Now, the actual figure itself, it's not bending. We're okay. It's just some of this kind of stuff. Gotta get back in. Just kind of like that. So that was my little knock. And I took a half point off because the game isn't driven by the miniatures. And with the new Kickstarter that was completed, there aren't miniatures, there's standees. So they're going to be cardstock standees in the game. So right there, that would make Folklore the Affliction, when it comes out, it would be a 10 in my book. It's that good. The only thing that I had any quibbles with was the minis. But, this carried an MSRP of $95 when it came out, and so did the core game, Folklore the Affliction. But if you're a fan of miniatures, okay, and if you paint miniatures, you know how to treat the miniatures that have the little softer plastic, right? Now, one thing I will mention, I kind of started to say, I did the review for Sword and Sorcery, talking about their miniatures and how they were bent. And that, I had a real knock for that because these are bent, but you're not going to have to sit there and boil these miniatures to unbend the little bent parts of them. Whereas with Sword and Sorcery, you would, because the bend is actually almost like set in the figure. A real pain. But let's see if we can get some good views. And I apologize that I'm kind of not looking at the camera while I do this. I'm kind of looking down at the preview screen to see. So the gray figures are the new characters, and there are 6 new character classes that are included in Dark Tales. And one thing I thought was interesting is some of the characters have more of a 19th century look to them, as opposed to a much more traditional kind of fantasy look that Folklore the Affliction had. Yes, it's the butcher. Wait till you see the baker and the candlestick maker. Oh my gosh, no, I'm kidding. It's just the butcher. Look at that cleaver. And taking a look at some of the monsters, some of the villains. So there were a bunch of monsters and villains in Folklore the Affliction. Now, I'm going to kind of refer a little bit back to the Sword and Sorcery every once in a while, because I know some people were a little perturbed that I didn't like Sword and Sorcery as much as other people did. And one of the things was, I mean, granted, the monsters would fight differently depending on the power card you would draw, but there still weren't a lot of different monsters to fight. That was rather disappointing. Whereas in Folklore, you get a good number of potential adversaries that you'll be able to fight. Yeah. I don't know, it's funny. Whenever I see this mini, let me get these out of the way again. You know what? I'm going to move some of this stuff so that these stand out a bit better against the background. I don't know, for some reason, I always think of, where's my $2? Yeah, I'm going old school again. Better Off Dead with John Cusack. Where's my $2? Like, where's my $2? Very, very nice. And then there's these flames. And these are monsters, actually. And I got an extra one somehow. There's only supposed to be 3 in the box. I got 4. Anyone care to give me a hand? And then there's a new selection of big baddies for Dark Tales, and you get 3 miniatures. There are more than just 3, but you get 3 really big. Where am I going, Jeff? There we go. Really cool. The sculpt work on this are really well done. I mean, sometimes with plastic miniatures, you'll see really, really kind of soft detail. Detail on these are pretty cool. And this is the Benanach, I think it's pronounced. And then the Fiend. I mean, pretty sweet. This is one of the reasons why I'm showing off the minis as far as, because everybody's probably sitting there going, wow, those are cool miniatures. But I thought you just told us the new edition coming out of Folklore and for Dark Tales won't have any miniatures. Yeah, but I'm not telling you that you can't maybe find it someplace. Personally, for a $95 MSRP, if you were somebody who plays miniatures, and once you were able to treat the plastic, stiffen it up. The other thing with soft plastic, which is a problem, is not necessarily that you need to make sure that it stays, stiff. It's because when it's soft and it kind of wiggles around, it flakes the paint off. That's the big issue. But like I said, there are ways for you to take care of that. Everybody's got their own kind of tips and tricks. But if you were to find this on the secondary market for around maybe that $95, that's a sweet deal for the minis alone. So that's why I wanted to kind of show these off. I know, somebody's out there thinking, yeah, Jeff, you're just doing that because you want to be like, yeah, look what I got. You guys don't have this, I got this. No, not at all. Because the game itself does not require miniatures. There is tactical movement, there's combat, things like that, and the miniatures, of course, enhance that, but you don't need them. Those standees, I'm sure, are going to look really cool, and I have to point out that some of the monsters, some of the new baddies that didn't get a miniature just get a token. So, like the Wood Mother. Some of the miniatures of the big baddies are available from Greenbrier Games too. And I did take a peek and they are still available. So definitely check that out. So anyway, so as far as, I'll move this out of the way a little bit. As far as the expansion, let me grab a sip. It's really dry down here, and it's warmed up in the Chicago area, but for some strange reason, it just seems like it's colder down here than it's been the past few days, and it's been colder outside. I don't get it. Then again, it might be because I've been kind of under the weather here. Anyway, so Folklore the Affliction is, as I mentioned, it's a dungeon crawler, but you're not always in dungeons. So it's very, very story driven. It's more story driven than pretty much anything else out there. It's far more story driven than Descent, Sword and Sorcery. I have not played Gloomhaven, so I can't tell you. I can't stack it up against Gloomhaven. But it is about as close as I have encountered to a GM-less or dungeon masterless role-playing game that's available. Really, really that good. So it's really story-driven, and you're going to travel across, and I didn't bust it out because it's in the actual Folklore of the Affliction box. It's in, you know, from the core game. You'll have a world map, and you travel across this world map as you're setting off to complete these adventures, because they're all kind of stories, and the stories all have chapters in them. So each chapter you're moving around, and then there's different encounters and all this other stuff. So it's not just, oh, here's a dungeon, knock yourself out. There's a lot going on. And of course, there's plenty of combat too. And you'll have a storybook. Now, this story journal 2, is pretty big. It's, what does it clock in at? 90 pages? 91 pages. And out of the 91 pages, and this is where we kind of get a little tricky as far as reviews, because I'll show off a little bit of the story journal and that in just a moment, but I don't want to spoil anything. Because, you know, it's kind of like, I don't understand why some people watch videos of, like, video games and that, and, you know, that are kind of story-ish, right? You know, adventure games and stuff. And then they want to go buy the game, and it's like, why? You just watched what happened. I don't get that. So I don't like to spoil anything for people. There's a lot of surprises. I like this story a lot, too, that's in it. And I should mention that a lot of credit has to go to the Ed Greenwood group, Ed Greenwood himself, too, because they did a lot of work on both Folklore of the Affliction and Dark Tales. And I have to say that if you've ever heard Ed Greenwood speak, really, really nice guy. I've met him twice, both times at Gen Con. And he actually did a little bumper for the Gaming Gang when we used to do a podcast. He's got this real unique voice. It's deep, but it's also sort of melodic. I don't know, it kind of sounds weird, right? I'd love to have him like dub this show, right? And now next in the news. Not even close to his voice, but still. All right, so we're going to take a look at the storybook. We'll look at it last. Now, the expansion also comes with a bunch of different rooms, and I will point out that you see these are cardstock. Well, I received this, excuse me, I received this back at Gen Con last year, and I happened to, and this was the same thing with Folklore of the Affliction, and I did an unboxing for Folklore, and I was showing off these cardstock tactical maps. It's basically what they are, they're tactical maps, and people lost their minds because, of course, these were supposed to be mounted. And it turned out that they actually had all the mounted boards and things like that. I just strolled off because they had early copies in, right? And they had noticed that the early copies had these cardstock. So Greenbrier Games addressed it. There was nothing for anyone to worry about. And folks who were coming, because they were just going to recorrelate the boxes with the correct mounted tactical maps and stuff. And the folks who were picking up at Gen Con, their Kickstarter copies, were getting a packet that had the correct, you know, mounted boards. I didn't know. How was I supposed to know, right? So I have the review copies and I stroll off and then I do an unboxing video, and then suddenly all these gamers are flipping out. They're all freaking out. It's like, what? Cardstock, they're supposed to be mounted. So yes, they'll be mounted. I have all the boards in another box. So I just wanted to kind of show these off because I held on to them. These are cool. So a lot of tactical combat goes on in the game, and that's what the minis are for, of course, right? And one of the things I really enjoy about Folklore is there's a lot of options. You got a lot of options going on in the tactical combat. You've got various different items, abilities, all different stuff, spells, but it's never overwhelming. And that was something that I really, really appreciated about the game, is that you're never really overwhelmed by what's going on. Now, when you first learn to play, yeah, it's going to take a little bit of time to get everything down pat. But I thought it flowed really well. It does flow very well once you know what's going on. So in Dark Tales, you're going to get more monsters. So let's show off some monsters here, or adversaries, because they're not always monsters. So we've got the Wretched Hag, the Possessed. Hi, Linda Blair. How you doing? Demon Spawn, the Hands of Death, the Demonic Flame, which I got the extra one, Dark Dryad, and the Banshee. And with all of the adversaries, I'm not going to say big baddies, because big baddies are a bit different. With the adversaries, you're going to notice that there are actually two sides to the card, because sometimes you'll run into them as you're traveling across the world, the game map, the world map, and you might have a skirmish encounter. And what the skirmish encounter really is, it's kind of an abstracted combat. It's not super simplified. So you do have options, but it's just not as detailed as when you have the big fights in key chapters of the story. That was actually something else I dig about Folklore, because granted, it is going to take some time to play a chapter of a story. Usually a couple hours is what we've found. But if you had, every time you run across something, that you had to go do a tactical level battle, you'd be there forever. So I do appreciate that some of these creatures, some of these opponents, you will fight in detail, and then it talks about, you know, their different characteristics and special powers and so on and so forth. There's even an image of the mini that's included, which new edition I would assume is going to have just a picture of the standee. So you've got those. Then you've got the big baddies, which are big baddies. I'm not kidding. These are tough to take down. So you got the Wood Mother, the Like. I thought that's how I always was told it's pronounced. I don't think it's Lich. I don't know. The Witch's Coven, the Doppelganger, the Benenok, and the Archfiend. And you'll see that they are not two-sided, because a lot of times you may not necessarily know exactly which big baddie you're going to fight. Also included in Dark Tales are 6 new characters. And the game is for up to 5 off the top of my head. Let me take a look. Yep, it is for 5. I thought it was for 5. I thought I remembered that correctly. So the original game had 6 characters, and this one adds on another 6. So it gives you a really nice variety to choose from. And then, of course, it's going to show the various different characteristics, special powers. There are keywords that are utilized with the different characters, too. So, of course, there's some restrictions on what characters, equipment and things like that they can use. So you have to make sure that it matches the keyword. Makes it pretty easy. Once again, it's going to show the miniature that you're going to use for them, or, in the new edition, I'm sure it'll be the standee. And then there really isn't any player elimination in Folklore unless everyone ends up taking a dirt nap. And then it's still really not over. But you can become ghosts, which is pretty cool because, and of course, basically you have to take a character who's a ghost, you have to take them. There's certain places you can go. Gypsies can resurrect someone who's deceased. But sometimes you kind of want to have a ghost around because sometimes if you run into ethereal creatures, they have a much easier time fighting those than people who are still on the, I guess we'll say, right side of the grass. So we've got the courtesan, the illusionist, and as you can see, it does have kind of a 19th century vibe to these characters. The scientist. And once again, now we go, this is more traditional fantasy look. The slayer. The woodsman. And we got the butcher. So you have those new characters, and each of the characters actually gets a character card. And it folds out. And what I recommend you do is scan these. It's just scan them and have them on like a player sheet for each of the players, because the reason why I mentioned that, okay, so it's going to show you a bit of the backstory of the butcher, for an example, and then you get to choose which of these, how you want to style the character. And this is with all the characters. They're going to give you a couple of options. Then you got the starting abilities, and then you're going to go and you're going to track down the starting item, weapon usually that they'll have. That's a bandage. So that is also a starting item. Then it's going to talk about location extras. And then you have a lore tree on the back. And this is really one of the main reasons why I mentioned, do a scan, print it out. Because you're supposed to mark these off, because there is a legacy aspect to this game. These characters will get better and better as you progress through each chapter of these stories. So that's why I say you should probably scan that or photocopy it, whatever you'd like. So all the new characters get these sheets here. So that's included. Then we've got a bunch of abilities. And with the abilities, some of them are going to say, okay, well, this is the character who can have this ability. And you gain abilities. Like I said, there's like a leveling up process through the game. And it'll say, for an example, so that's a courtesan ability there. Scientist ability. But then there's some that are kind of wide open. Some of the different abilities here. So not only did this expansion include, of course, abilities for each of the characters, there are new, pretty much universal abilities that are added too. Then, as I mentioned, as you're going through the game world, you have these different encounters, and there are more encounters that have been added. Kind of show them off a bit. I did have it right side up. They'll say, okay, so like dungeon crawl, and there's two sides to these encounters, and some of the encounters might not even be combat related. You might have to have one of your characters, one of the adventurers, pass a skill check, and if they fail the skill check, something not so great happens. Or if they do pass a skill check, they may gain lore, or may gain an item. Sometimes you may have to fight somebody regardless if you succeed or fail at your skill check. So we've got that. There are some new items that have been added. There are loads and loads of items in the core game. So these are some of the new starting items, basically. There are some new artifacts. So more cool stuff, cool loot for your characters to get. And then another aspect of Folklore that's kind of cool is, now it kind of harkens back to, the original Advanced Dungeons and Dragons a little bit. You can have followers. So you've got like these little NPC followers, and they can be individuals, they can be animals. So we've got some new companions / militia that are added to the mix too. But the thing that really, for me, stands out that makes Dark Tales a must-have, if you enjoy Folklore, you really, really want to have Dark Tales, is because Story Journal 2. It is some really, really cool stuff. And it has taken me a while to really do a review, mainly because we haven't gotten through the whole thing. We're a good ways through. And I'm just going to page through a few pages. I'm not going to go through tons of this. Like I said, I don't want to spoil anything. Granted, I'm not showing something off long enough for you to read it, but so as I mentioned, so we got like story 1, grasping for answer, which you would think it'd be grasping for answers, but hey, I'm just saying. And it'll say, okay, so it's going to give you the premise, it's going to set you up. You're going to have a lot of different dice rolls you're going to make during your travels. I mean, combat and everything, it's all percentile dice based. So it's going to show you, okay, so then it's going to show you the setup for different maps and tell you what map to use as you're going through different things. Talking about choosing your path. So you've got story skill check, story skill checks as you progress along. So there's a create your own adventure aspect to the game too. And you notice you'll have some tactical combat, which takes the majority of the time up while you're playing, but you're not going to get overwhelmed in them in each chapter. So usually there's a couple, maybe 3. Really, really nice artwork. Just kind of flipping through a little bit. But as I mentioned, this is 91 pages long, and we're still flipping at, we're at page 74. We're still going through. These are all adventures. These are all stories. It's not until we hit page 81 where there are more story moments, and these are more really along the line of the, kind of create your own adventure. It's going to tell you, okay, well, you might have a skirmish, or you may have a skill check, or you may just choose one thing or the other. And as you're playing along, you don't need a dungeon master. You just need somebody who's going to read. Now, you may find that, in your gaming gang, you've got someone who reads out loud better than others. You may want to ask them, hey, do you mind doing the, handling, reading the little story elements, stuff like that? Or you just can pass the book around. That's fine too. So all in all, that is what's included in Folklore, the Affliction, Dark Tales. And as I mentioned before, really, really dig the Folklore line. I'm really hoping that once this new Kickstarter comes out, well, the Kickstarter's done, but once those the second run comes out, that people will catch on to this, because it is an excellent, excellent game. And I am a meaty, epic game player. That's what I dig. I mean, I just might as well just switch back over this way. But I love big, epic games. I am not of the stripe where it's like, oh, this game's going out for 2 hours. And I know I'm having a good time, but 2 hours is too long for a game. And if that's how you are, that's fine. That's cool. But I grew up with games that took all afternoon long to play, all night to play. We played role-playing games, and it was pretty funny. We might spend the night over at a friend's house, and out of those 2 days, role-played for 24 hours combined. So we were never the kind of gamers who are like, oh, wow, you know, this game's running. It's 3 hours we've been playing. Now, of course, that's having a good time. If a game's not very good, then, of course, after a half hour, you're sitting there going, oh, is this ever going to end? It's like, I'll give you a great example. Of course, it's a completely different sort of game. Cards Against Humanity. I think Cards Against Humanity is fun. I think it's a fun game. I don't know anybody who knows how to wrap that game up in a realistic amount of time. I don't see Cards Against Humanity being all that entertaining the third hour in. Yeah, about an hour, hour and a half. Yes, it's a lot of fun. 3 hours, it's sort of like, can we wrap this up, please? Anyway, but yeah, so, and then of course I know Folklore, The Affliction, and Folklore Dark Tales, they sort of, the company line on these for playtime is about 60 to 90 minutes, I believe. I do find that just with my group, we go a little bit longer than that, but it's not a negative. I'm just saying that we do play a little bit longer than that. But it's not an issue because we're all having a really good time. There's a lot that I really, really love about Folklore. You should probably, since this is an expansion, I'm not going to go into all the specifics of the core game itself. But what you could do is, if you have not picked up Folklore and you're kind of thinking, hey, you know, this Dark Tales looks pretty good. I wonder how that core game is. Go check out, I've got a written review and I've also got a video review. So you can check out the video review, of course, at thegaminggang.com, as well as the written review. But the video is also here on YouTube too. So you can take a peek. All in all, I score Dark Tales. I almost said Dark Souls. I haven't played that game in a couple of years. Why am I thinking Dark Souls? Dark Tales, I score the same as I do Folklore The Affliction, 9.5. And really, for those out there who are not looking to pick it up secondary market, pick up the miniatures, or see if, you know, friendly local game store somewhere has this edition that's got the minis, I gotta be honest. Now, I haven't seen it. I don't have any, you know, I'm friends with Julia Hearn at Greenbrier Games, but I don't have any like inside dope. I haven't seen what these new editions are going to look like. But if they stack up the way I think they're going to stack up, easily both a 10. Because the only little knock is against the minis. So price-wise, I don't know exactly what you might be looking at as far as the cost for the Dark Tales expansion. So I'm going to give you a guess. This is just a guesstimate. I don't know, because you can't even get any of the info on the Greenbrier site. So I'm going to base it off of what I saw on the Kickstarter. So for the Kickstarter, for the new edition of Folklore The Affliction, it was $60. So you're probably looking ballparkish right around there for the core game. Maybe 65, because usually you get a little bit of a discount because you're actually supporting the Kickstarter. There were some other things that were kind of floated in there, though, like a creature adventure packet and things like that. But I do think the core game is going to be about 60. It's going to be my guess. Now, they did have the core game and the expansion together, plus this create your own adventure, or creative ventures for it. It was 115. So I'm going to guess that Dark Tales, when it hits retailers, you might be looking at about somewhere between about $45 and $55 is going to be my guess. And this originally, with the miniatures, was $95. But yes, by all means, I highly recommend Folklore the Affliction. If you can pick it up on secondary market, knock yourself out if you want to go that direction. If you don't care about the miniatures, hold tight, sit tight. Greenbrier Games is going to have the core game and Dark Tales available in the near future. Now, when I say near future, I don't know if they're thinking maybe Gen Con. I don't know. I can't tell you. I think some of the times when they do a Kickstarter, it takes a bit of time for them to get it out. It's more because of the miniatures. So I think we should be seeing this before Gen Con. But if I get word otherwise, I will let you know on a future show. So anyway, hey, not too shabby. We went almost 90 minutes today. I usually try to keep the show about hour and a half-ish. Usually. Let's see. Anything else that was cooking that I wanted to mention? No, I don't think so. I think that should be good for a Thursday. Once again, I like to look at RPGs on Thursdays. I will try to have more traditional, real role-playing game coverage on Thursday. I just didn't have anything ready, and I thought, hey, you know what? This is a role-playing board game without a GM, and it's awesome, so why not share the expansion? All right, so when you're not watching the Daily Dope, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all the latest in gaming news, reviews, comics, movies, TV. Come on, by now you know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Once again, I am Jeff McAleer. I will be back tomorrow with a review of Ancestry from Calliope Games. And until then, I hope you have a wonderful Thursday, and thanks so much for watching.